I've been trying to warn people for a long time, years now actually, that the KZ reptilian overlords are here in a bid to take over the planet and destroy humanity. And in today's video, I'm looking at their latest weapon, the KZ X HBB PR2 in-ear monitors. Let's get it. What's cracking, audio fans? It's David here from Prime Audio Reviews. So, what can you expect to get from a planar magnetic IEM that's priced at the moment between $32 and $52, depending on where you shop, but as low as $32, you're getting a planar magnetic in-ear monitor. Alright, there's the box. Nothing has changed there. I don't have a problem with that. As always, a limited supply of included ear tips, so keep that in mind, especially if you're new to the IEM game. If none of the included ear tips give you a good fit, then you won't get the best experience, and you'll either hate them because of that, because you're not getting the proper bass response and everything, or you'll have to, go shopping and buy some extra ear tips. So keep that in mind. But for now, let's get into the IEMs, and here they are. Check them out. So, similar in styling to the KZ PR1, you've got these aluminium faceplates and clear resin shells. Once again, we get the 0.75mm shrouded 2-pin connectors there. And as usual, we get the standard KZ silver-plated copper cable, which is not too bad. It is functional. This one's handling itself quite well. Some of them tend to be a bit more bouncy, but so far, maybe it's just a time thing, but so far this one's a bit more supple and handles a bit better. So if you've tried some of these KZ IEMs, whether it be the ZS10 Pro X, whether it be the ZSN Pro, the PR1, etc., they all have basically the same shell shape, and they are all pretty comfortable. But enough with all that stuff. Throw up the graph. So, first of all, these things require quite a lot of power to perform. Definitely, I would recommend using some kind of amplification, at the very least a dongle DAC. I've used it with my Hi-Vis AP80 Pro X. This has no problems driving them, especially in high gain. Most dongle DACs should be able to handle it fairly well. I don't know about the Apple dongle, I don't have that, but all the other ones that I use don't have a problem, although you do have to bump up the volume considerably. So don't go plugging these straight into your smartphone, because you probably won't get a very good result. So how would I describe the sound signature of the PR2 here? It's a very clean sounding IEM. It's got a little bit of emphasis on the bass and the treble, while keeping the mid-range clear and detailed. So it's got a leaner tonality, and the sound is crisp and airy, but in some cases it could use a little more weight. The soundstage is not really wide or deep. It is reasonably wide, but it's not a big soundstage, but it does have some extra height, and although the dimensions of the stage aren't huge, it's a very spacious stage, and that's because of the excellent instrument separation and very good overall resolution. So there's good spacing between all the instruments. They're sort of cordoned off into their own little space. Okay, let's talk about the bass, and it has sort of most of the traits of a typical planar driver. It's textured and it's punchy, and most of all, it's a fast bass. It's boosted slightly north of neutral, with an emphasis, of course, on the sub-bass extension. But despite that, the bass is fairly tame in terms of quantity, and this is definitely not what I would call a bass head IEM. But it's a highly focused bass, it's very clean, it's very precise. The sub bass has a light rumble, and the mid bass is tight and precise. It's not exactly authoritative in terms of impact, but it works really well with the overall tuning, and I don't think you'll find it lacking in punchiness or quantity. And then for the mid-range, excellent clarity, great resolution, good detail, no congestion. Like I said, the tonality is slightly on the leaner side of neutral, which means that the mid-range is not especially warm and it's definitely not colored. While this can be great for some genres of music, male vocals may sound a little thin and not as robust as I would like sometimes. But despite that, the PR2 has a fairly accurate timbre, and that means that instruments and voices sound natural and realistic. Overall though, the mid-range of the PR2, it's well balanced, great clarity, lots of detail, pretty nice. And finally, the treble, and the PR2 has better extension in the treble than the PR1, yet it is smoother at the same time. It's got lots of detail, instruments in the treble range are well defined, and at the same time it adds a nice attack to percussion instruments throughout the mid-range. It sounds pretty authentic in terms of timbre. It doesn't sound artificial or metallic or scratchy. Most importantly though, it doesn't really have any harsh peaks, and it's not sibilant. So that means it's enjoyable to listen to for extended periods of time. Overall, the treble is well balanced, offers good detail, got good extension, and it's not harsh and it's not fatiguing. Let's get into our comparisons now. We will start with the KZ PR1 Hi-Fi, which is also a planar magnetic, a little bit easier to drive in terms of power requirements. The PR1 though has a thicker and a warmer sound. This is mainly due to its bass, which is boosted considerably more than the PR2. As a result, the PR1's mid-range has more body and more fullness. The treble is not as forward in the mix, and again that's due to the bass elevation, but the upper treble lift gives it a bit more of a brittle sound in the highs. The PR2's treble has a more natural timbre. The PR1 has a narrower but a deeper stage. Its imaging is not as precise as the PR2. So if you prefer more bass or more meat on the bones, as some might say, you'll probably prefer the PR1 Hi-Fi. Those who relish a cleaner, very uncolored sound, a very more detailed and lighter sound, you'll appreciate the PR2. Right, next on the board, we've got the KZ ZS10 Pro X. And the Pro X here, it sounds more saturated and colored than the PR2. It's got extra sub-bass and mid-bass presence, quite a lot more in comparison. The ZS10 Pro X's mid-range is thicker and warmer, but at the same time, it's also more congested compared to the PR2's more neutral and spacious mid-range. The ZS10 Pro X has smoother treble notes, except for that sort of one peak at 8 kilohertz, and that peak gives snares a nice snappy attack, but it also can be a little bit jarring or not quite as cohesive the rest of the time as the PR2's treble overall just sort of blends better with its mid-range and bass. The ZS10 Pro X also has a smaller and a more crowded soundstage, and that's because of the sort of extra thickness and warmth in the sound. So the Pro X here, it's got a laid-back presentation, but it's got more bass fullness and bass impact, while the PR2 is cleaner overall, albeit drier somewhat from top to bottom, but definitely technically impressive compared to the ZS10 Pro X. And when you listen to them side by side, you realize just how colored the sound of the ZS10 Pro X is. And for our final comparison, look, we haven't seen these for a while. The Blonde or the Belon, no, the Blon BL03. Check them out. One of the worst stock cables in IEM, in budget IEM history. Terrible cable, just tangly as heck. But myself and a lot of people still have a great deal of love for the BL03. And the BL03, it's got a thicker and a warmer sound signature. Surprise, surprise, a recurring theme here, obviously. It has an elevated mid-bass, making it somewhat bloomy, a bit boomy in the bass, which is one of the big complaints that people had, although it does sound so good. But the PR2 is much leaner and cleaner. Male vocals are richer on the BL03 compared to the PR2, which renders them with more clarity and articulation. Female vocals are more sultry and seductive on the Blonde, and they are clearer with added bite on the PR2. And then for the treble, naturally it's less pronounced on the Blondes, and that brings vocals to the forefront. Very sort of vocal and mid-centric sound here. But it delivers less precise treble and less precise imaging as a result. The BL03's soundstage is more intimate, of course, but it is rounder. It's got a very round and natural kind of soundstage, while the PR2 is wider with more space between all the instruments. So yeah, a lot of talking there from me. I think that's time to wrap it up. So let's, in conclusion, the KZX HBB PR2 IEMs are pretty fucking incredible value for money. I cannot believe we've got a good planar magnetic IEM for like $30 to $40 to $50. The sound quality is very impressive. It's not exactly my cup of tea in terms of overall tonality. I do find it a little bit lean, but on the plus side, I don't find it fatiguing to listen to. KZ has done an incredible job with these, and I'm just going to wrap it up there. Highly recommended. So thanks for watching the video. If you liked it, you know the deal. Give it the old thumbs up, Parfam audiophile style. Have you not subscribed yet? Come on, hit that button. It only takes a second. And until next time, I'll see you later.